You ever hear people rave about a car so much that when you finally drive it, you think, this is what the hype was about? Some cars earn their legendary status, but others, well, let's just say the myth is often bigger than the machine. Today, we're taking a hard look at 8 cars that have been put on a pedestal, only for reality to knock them right back down. Some of these names are icons, some broke records, and others defined entire generations of car culture. But do they really deserve the endless praise? Or have they simply ridden a wave of nostalgia, marketing, and internet hype to a status they never truly earned? Let's separate myth from reality, starting with the car that was once considered the pinnacle of automotive engineering, the Bugatti Veyron. Number 1. Bugatti Veyron, a technological marvel that forgot about the thrill. The Bugatti Veyron shattered records with its 1,000 horsepower engine and 250 mph top speed, but as a driver's car, it falls flat. Its all-wheel drive, smooth dual-clutch transmission, and refined cabin make it feel more like a high-speed luxury cruiser than a raw hypercar. At over 4,300 pounds, it lacks the agility and connection of true driver-focused machines. The Veyron was built to prove what was possible, not to deliver an engaging experience. Impressive? Absolutely, but thrilling? Not so much. Nissan GT-R, a supercar killer that forgot the thrill. The Nissan GT-R has been hailed as a supercar slayer, but in reality, it prioritizes efficiency over excitement. Its all-wheel drive system and advanced electronics deliver insane speed, but the experience is clinical rather than visceral. The steering lacks feel, the car is heavy, and while it dominates on paper, it doesn't engage like a true driver's car. And then there's the price. Once seen as an affordable performance bargain, the GT-R's cost has skyrocketed, with new models reaching 6 figures. It's fast, but it lacks the raw emotion that makes a car truly great. Next up, the Toyota Supra, another internet legend with a reality check waiting to happen. Number 3. Toyota Supra MK4, more internet legend than driving icon. The Toyota Supra MK4 might be the single most overhyped car in modern enthusiast culture. It's the poster child of the 1990s JDM boom, a star in the Fast and the Furious, and the holy grail of tuners everywhere. Ask any hardcore fan, and they'll tell you the Supra is the greatest Japanese sports car of all time. The problem? That's not really true. Let's start with what the Supra actually was when it launched. It wasn't some lightweight, razor-sharp driver's car. It was a GT, a long-legged, high-speed cruiser designed to compete with cars like the Nissan 300ZX and Mitsubishi 3000 GT, not Porsches or Ferraris. Weighing over 3,400 pounds in stock form, it was hardly nimble. The steering was good, but not great. The handling was balanced, but not exceptional. Toyota had built a fast, comfortable sports car, not a world-beating performance machine. Of course, there's the engine, the legendary 2JZ GTE. That part of the hype is justified. The 2JZ is an engineering marvel, a ridiculously strong inline-6 that can take absurd amounts of power with the right modifications. And that's the real reason the Supra became famous. Not because it was the best car from the factory, but because it had the potential to be something greater. This is where the internet myth-making took over. The Supra isn't revered for what it was. It's worshipped for what people turned it into. The 1,000 horsepower builds, the insane quarter-mile times, the dyno battles, none of these things have anything to do with the car Toyota actually built. If you strip away the aftermarket parts and take the Supra for what it is in stock form, you're left with a fast, well-built, but fairly unremarkable sports car from the 90s. And yet, people are willing to pay 6 figures for one today. Prices have reached such absurd levels that you think the Supra was a lost piece of automotive perfection, rather than a car that sat on dealer lots unsold in the 90s. Toyota itself didn't even see much success with the Supra. Sales were so poor that they pulled it from the US market in 1998. It wasn't some celebrated legend back then. It was an overpriced, underperforming GT car that struggled to find buyers. That's not to say the Supra is a bad car. It's well built, it looks great, and yes, that engine is a masterpiece. But as an actual driving experience, it doesn't live up to the myth. It's a car that the internet turned into a legend, rather than one that truly earned it. Number 4. Land Rover Defender: Nostalgia versus Reality. The Land Rover Defender is often hailed as one of the greatest off-road vehicles of all time. It's the automotive equivalent of a Swiss Army knife, rugged, dependable, and built to conquer the world's harshest terrain. At least, that's what the reputation says. The truth? The classic Defender is one of the most uncomfortable, unreliable, and overrated off-roaders ever built. The nostalgia surrounding the original Defender is understandable. It looks tough. It has a military background. It's been featured in countless documentaries and adventure films, trekking across deserts and jungles like a mechanical Indiana Jones. But if you've ever actually driven one, you'll quickly realize that nostalgia is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. First, let's talk about comfort, or rather, the complete lack of it. The Defender was designed in the 1940s, and by the time production ended in 2016, it still hadn't evolved much beyond that original concept. The driving position is cramped, the pedals are awkwardly placed, and the ride quality is horrendous. It's a car that beats you up on long journeys, with no real consideration for modern ergonomics or comfort. Then, there's reliability. For a vehicle that's supposedly unstoppable, the Defender has a bad habit of, well, stopping. Early models were notorious for electrical gremlins, oil leaks, and general mechanical issues that required constant attention. Yes, they could be fixed easily, but that's because they needed to be fixed all the time. Owners don't talk about how reliable their Defenders are. They talk about how good they've gotten at fixing them. And let's address the biggest myth of all: off-road capability. The Defender is good off-road, but not exceptional. In stock form, it doesn't have the articulation or technology of modern off-roaders like the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, or even its own replacement, the new Defender. A stock Toyota Land Cruiser will outperform it in most real-world off-road situations, and with far greater reliability. The old Defender was capable, but not the unstoppable off-road king many make it out to be. Despite all this, the Defender's cult status means that prices have gone insane. Classic models are now collector's items, and modified versions sell for six figures. People aren't buying them for their actual capabilities. They're buying into an idea, a romanticized vision of adventure and ruggedness that often doesn't hold up to reality. The Defender is an icon, no doubt, but is it truly great? Or just another case of history looking better in the rearview mirror? Number 5. Porsche 911 991, when progress comes at a cost. The Porsche 911 has long been the benchmark for sports cars, but the 991 generation proved that even Porsche can get things wrong. With a larger chassis, electric steering, and a new 7-speed manual, the 991 felt like a luxury GT than a pure driver's car. The famously communicative steering of older 911s was replaced with a more distant, less engaging feel, and the new manual gearbox felt clunky compared to the beloved 6-speeds of the past. Even the engine, while still a flat 6, lacked the mechanical rawness of its predecessors. It was smoother and more efficient, but at the cost of character. While later 991 models, especially the GT3, corrected some of these missteps, the earlier versions marked a turning point. First time a 911 felt more about refinement than driver engagement. It was still fast, still capable, but for purists, it was the moment the 911 lost a bit of its soul. Number 6. BMW M3 E30, a racing legend, but a road car letdown. The E30 M3 is one of the most celebrated performance cars of all time, but its reputation often overshadows its reality. Built for touring car racing, it was never particularly fast on the street. Its 2.3-liter four-cylinder made just 192 horsepower, and in daily driving, the 6-cylinder 325i often felt more usable. On a racetrack, the E30 M3 shines, but on regular roads, it can feel stiff and unrefined. It demands to be pushed hard to truly come alive, making it less of a balanced all-rounder than later M3s. And then there's the price. Once considered the underdog of the lineup, today it commands absurd collector values, often exceeding 6 figures. While historically significant, it's far from the best M3 ever made. Newer models deliver better performance, comfort, and driving feel at a fraction of the cost. Number 7. Jaguar E-Type, beauty that overpromises. The Jaguar E-Type is often called the most beautiful car ever made. Its long hood, curvaceous body, and sleek proportions make it an undeniable design icon. But for all its beauty, the E-Type's driving experience doesn't live up to the fantasy. In stock form, the E-Type isn't particularly fast, nor is it a precision machine. The steering can feel vague, The brakes are underwhelming, and at high speeds, it doesn't inspire confidence. The interior, while stylish, is cramped and impractical. Unlike the lightweight, race-prepared versions that built its legend, the standard E-Type was more about the idea of performance than true driving excellence. Its reputation is built on looks, not capability. It's a car that impresses when parked, but can disappoint when driven. Like many classics, nostalgia has elevated the E-Type to near mythical status, but in reality, it's more of an art piece than a world-class sports car. Number 8. Mazda MX-5 NA, the starter car that overstayed its welcome. The first-generation Mazda MX-5 Miata is praised as the ultimate enthusiast car, the answer to all driving woes. And while it is a great lightweight roadster, the level of reverence it receives is often disproportionate to what it actually delivers. It's fun, but also basic. The engine is underpowered, the handling is playful but not razor sharp, and while it teaches you the fundamentals of driving, it's far from the pinnacle of performance. The biggest issue? The belief that the Miata is the only answer. It's a great entry point, but many enthusiasts refuse to acknowledge that there are plenty of cars that offer more excitement, power, and engagement. The MX-5 is a fantastic beginner sports car, but the idea that it's the ultimate driver's car is a stretch. It's a stepping stone, not the final destination. Some cars earn their legendary status, while others ride a wave of nostalgia, internet hype, or sheer marketing genius. The Bugatti Veyron proved what was possible but lacked engagement. The Nissan GT-R became a supercar killer at the cost of soul. The Supra MK4 was built on aftermarket potential rather than true greatness. The Defender, a symbol of rugged adventure, was anything but refined or reliable. Even icons like the Porsche 911, 991, E30 M3, and E-Type weren't immune to overblown reputations. And while the Miata is fun, it's not the only answer to great driving. That doesn't mean these cars are bad. Far from it. But sometimes, the legend overshadows the reality. And when that happens, it's worth asking, does the car live up to the hype? Or do we just want to believe it does? What do you think? Which of these cars deserves its reputation? And which one is the most overrated of all time? Let me know in the comments.